On the 25th anniversary of NADA, our parting words are, be careful what you pray for because you might get it. For decades, pro-treatment advocates, many of us in this room, agitated for recognition that alcoholism and drug addiction are not due to moral failure, but are the result of an involuntary disease process. Against the concept of addiction as some type of character flaw or symptom of an underlying psychiatric disorder, our aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters in the recovery movement since the beginning, in 1935, have stressed the biophysical basis and the large genetic component of addiction. However, the social and medical establishment resistance to recovery movement ideas persisted long after the accumulating scientific evidence had tipped strongly to the pro-disease position. But as often with scientific truths, public policy lagged far behind. But we in the recovery movement persisted in this often uphill battle in the belief that a true understanding by the public and by decision makers of the actual etiology of addiction would lead to compassion and appropriate care instead of the existing stigma and neglect. And at long last, the paradigm finally shifted. And we in the movement knew that a new viewpoint had arisen when the National Institute on Drug Abuse, that's Uncle Sam, adopted the slogan, quote, addiction is a brain disease, end quote. But what happened to the compassion and the appropriate care that were supposed to follow this revelation? Somehow they did not appear. While NIDA acknowledged the fundamentally physiological basis of addiction, much as the 12-step movement had been doing for more than 70 years, NIDA forgot to mention the equally important spiritual side of recovery. Instead, these officials handed down to us a whole new set of pharmaceutical fantasies. Their mantra became, quote, if it is a disease, there must be a pill for it, end quote. Now, on the rare occasion when addiction issues even make it into the major media, the story is all about the latest chemical cure for addiction. Newsweek last year had a major illustrated feature that was highly skeptical of the existing rehab industry, which it sees as mainly benefiting celebrities who want to disappear for a while or to get back in the good graces of their public. The lead paragraph of that article started out, the time is coming, perhaps even within the decade, when doctors will treat alcoholism with a pill. While ever-growing scientific evidence indicates that a key component of recovery is involvement in 12-step or similar activities, no governmental campaign blazes out this news. No government funding leverage presses the treatment industry toward maximization of the existing and cheap resource for recovery. And NADA programs, which offer a biophysical treatment, also cheap, which boosts the spiritual resources of the addiction patient, these programs continue to exist on minimal funding and on the wits of their staffers and management. Instead, we see an ever-increasing flood of federal subsidy to the drug companies, in big trouble with Wall Street because of their blockbuster blunders such as Vioxx. Big Pharma scrambles for new patentable molecules to fill its famous pipeline to profit. Thus the endless parade of press releases about pills, cocktails, and vaccines to cure all the nation's substance use disorders. Some of these concoctions may actually play a constructive role in the recovery process, but anyone acquainted with the history of addiction treatment, or indeed that of any chronic behaviorally mediated medical condition, will be dubious. Whether it's diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, multiple sclerosis, schizophrenia, or many others, chemotherapy of any kind can never be the whole answer to chronic disease.
Yep.
Addiction medicine at the provider level, until now at least, has been way ahead of other chronic disease disciplines in giving acknowledgement to the spiritual aspects of chronic disease management and treatment. Consider just one example. Effective pharmaceutical and other biophysical and behavioral treatments have long existed for diabetes, but many diabetic patients do not comply with their care regime. This is despite the dire, likely consequences of such neglect. Their needless suffering may persist because they have no existing independent social structure, such as the 12-step movement, to aid them in grappling with how, and most of all, why, to live with a chronic illness. NADA is at its strongest point in its history and is moving at this moment to assert this strength in the sphere of public policy, a move with which I strongly concur. But to succeed in its new mission, NADA must not forget that from its birth, it understood the necessity of connecting firmly to the 12-step movement and other culturally indigenous spiritual support systems if patients were to be given effective help in their struggle to recover. Long after the current false belief that a chemical cure for addiction is just around the corner, the spiritual groundwork that NADA has helped to lay will continue to exist for those who still suffer and seek help.